As equality spreads and men individually become less strong, they ever increasingly let themselves glide with the stream of the crowd and find it hard to maintain alone an opinion abandoned by the rest. Alexis de Tocqueville. Every man is a creature of the age in which he lives. Very few are able to rise above the ideas of the time. Voltaire. Obvious to see where Tocqueville got his ideas from, understandably, considering that Voltaire was one of the greatest thinkers from France in the 18th century. And Tocqueville ended up writing one of the most influential books of the 19th century, Democracy in America, which is where that first quote comes from. Glide with the stream of the crowd. You hear me say that a bunch, don't you? That's where I got it. And look how many people have any type of original thoughts. They don't, do they? It's difficult to rise above the ideas of the time. We just glide with the stream of the crowd. Path of least resistance, right? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Aren't we herd animals? Yes, we are. That's why they call us sheeple. The problem with being a herd animals, there's protection in the herd as long as the herd's going in the right direction. Our problem is our herd is headed for a cliff. So this is when you don't want to go the path of least resistance. That's how nature works. We're supposed to go that direction. There's supposed to be protection in a herd. But our herd is heading off a cliff. Our ship is heading for an iceberg. That's why my whole channel is about the trim tabs out there trying to steer the ship away from that iceberg and keep the herd from running off the cliff. We're supposed to follow the path of least resistance, but not right now. Not when we're heading the wrong direction. And look, how did he say it? Hard to maintain alone an opinion abandoned by the rest. Again, how many people have any original thoughts? Tocqueville, interestingly, was born 27 years after Voltaire died, so it's obvious that Voltaire had a huge influence over this French political theorist and socialist, Tocqueville. And he was sent over to America to evaluate our prison systems. Well, he did a lot more than just observe our prison systems. That's why he wrote that great book. He codified all of his observations in that great book, Democracy in America. Interestingly, one of the first observations he made, one of the strangest things that he saw when he came over to America was what? How early we ate breakfast over here. I did a special video on this, how often should we eat, where I pointed out that the 3 meal a day eating habit's a relatively recent one. And again, when Tocqueville came over here in 1825, or 31 rather, he was 25 when this happened, 26, and wrote the book. It was published in 35, came over in 31, was born in 1805. So, at that time, people in Europe weren't eating breakfast like we were. And of course, breakfast is just breaking the fast. When's the first meal of the day? And to show you how far off our so-called experts are, they say that's the most important meal of the day. Well, that's baloney. If you don't understand that, be sure and watch How Often Should We Eat. I have a video I've done on that. But anyway, Tocqueville understood what was happening over here. He thought equality was one of the most exciting social and political things of his time. And it was. And also individualism. And he saw that in America we had the best opportunity at that time to express equality in action. But he also warned us, because he understood how individualism works and how easily we're molded, especially by the newspapers. And that's what's happened to us. Conventional wisdom. Most of us are doing things we think are okay and they're not okay. They're wrong. Most of us think our so-called experts are the solution to our problems and they're not. Yes, it's psychologically difficult to break away from that herd. But when the herd is about to become extinct, we've got to do something. The trim tabs of society have to do something to steer this herd in a different direction. And we can do it. In fact, as it is, the herd mentality is one of what I listed as a problem of knowledge. Piece 14 in my special teaching tool. And I also realize that the one thing that's getting us in trouble, because we follow the leader heading to a cliff, is also the one thing that can turn us back onto the right path if we can steer our ship in the right direction. And then we can follow the leader in the right direction. So obviously that's what my whole YouTube channel is about. Helping you guys realize the role that you play so that we can once again make the path of least resistance the right path to join. But for the trim tabs, it's not an easy job for us because we've got to break away from what is instinctively what we feel we should do. But you guys out there who are learning what's going on, you understand this, you feel it. It's in your soul. That's why you're doing something about it. And it makes your life have purpose and meaning. And things can change if we can just get enough of us to realize that we got to rise above the ideas of the time. We got to stop gliding with the stream of the crowd. We got to go where few have gone. We got to climb the unexplored mountain. We got to do what few have done so we can see what few have seen. I know. It's frightening to think about not being in the herd. And of course, we're ostracized, aren't we? Coming out of Plato's cave and going back down is one of the hardest things we can ever do. And remember, there are many levels in Plato's cave. And we don't need to know all of them to get out of the cave, but once we go back down in the cave, we need to understand all the levels in Plato's cave to help other people get out of that cave, because those are obstacles that might get in their way. And it's up to you to design a program and escape from this cave of ignorance that makes sense to you, that you can tell to other people, and that will appeal to the right people. You'll need to develop different stories for different people, probably. It's like what I've done. I try to always customize what I say to potential trim tabs or heroes to help them embrace this message. It's what you got to do if you really care. Because right now, we're in trouble, my friends. Path of least resistance. We're pretty much doomed if we can't turn this herd of ours in the right direction. It takes a collective effort on the part of all of us who understand this, and to get out there every day and share the message. How people realize that we're going the wrong direction. It's a little scary in the beginning to jump off and go the other way, but as Mark Twain once said, anytime you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to pause and reflect. And I always like to add to that quote and ask ourselves, what the hell are we doing? When are we going to get out of this hell we created? When are we going to stop grabbing the crab ahead of us and pulling back down into the cave? What's it going to take to overcome the lack of continuity in a movement that knows what we have to do, but yet we want to bicker and argue about petty details? We have to support everyone's message that helps us realize how important the fall of mankind is. That's all that matters. All the details will work itself out. We should not cook our food, my friends. Not a popular message. Almost impossible to embrace, because now you're going in the opposite direction. What is the easiest way to break away from the herd? You know what it is, don't you? It's an idea's time has come. It's a solid food vacation. When you take a solid food vacation, you can break away from the herd. You can go back into Plato's cave. You can find all the different levels of Plato's cave. When you do all that, you're in for a treat.